Hello and welcome to Green by Design. This is your host, Erica Reiner from Eco Method Interiors. And today I have the pleasure of being joined by Julie Naylon of No Wire Hangers. Thank you so much for your time today, Julie, and thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Now I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about Julie right before we pop in. So Julie has had a passion for organization and the environment since she was a child growing up in the suburbs outside of Detroit, Michigan. Her mother had a gift for organizing, and with her guidance, Julie soon found that she preferred categorizing the toys in her toy box to playing with them. So she was actually in the past in the film and television world. And between projects, between those two things, she started organizing her colleagues' homes and built her business out of that passion. So she has been around, let's see, since for a few years now. I don't think I have a start date. I saw a date 2014, but that was actually when she appeared on the Conan O'Brien show. So she's been doing this for a bit, and she currently resides here with me in Los Angeles and is looking forward to helping more people clear the clutter and live a more simplified lifestyle. So that's a little bit about her, and I'm so excited to have her on and get to learn all this good stuff. So again, thank you so much, and we can jump right into it. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that story of how you kind of started taking your mom's influence and then got asked to do some organizing at work and built your own business out of this?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing it, like you said, since I was a kid, and I didn't realize it was a skill because I was born this way. So I just assumed everyone knew how to do this. So when I started doing it for people, they started telling me how good I was at it. That's when I realized, maybe I could make a living out of this. And then I learned more about the industry and realized that, people do actually make a career out of this. So I started in 2008 and went full time with my business.
That's an amazing story. So basically you were helping out like your colleagues and bosses as like hey, can you just get this done for me? Everything is so cluttered and like, I need you to go through this.
Always just been a part of my life. Like when I would go to my friend's house when I was like 8 years old, I would clean their room instead of that was, my my joy. So it was, it's just always been a part of my life. I just didn't really realize that I could make a career out of it.
Right. So okay, so the reason that we found you, and we're so excited to have you on is not just because the world of interior design and organizing is similar in a lot of respects, but because you also have an interest and passion for the environment. And that is actually how we found you, because you promote that and that's a part of who you are and you're not afraid to share it. So I would love to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just goes with organizing, the whole buying and consuming and then the purging. I didn't want to just come in people's homes and do this constant, buy and get rid of and organize. So I really help people focus on what they're buying, where is it coming from? Where is it going to end up? Like, what is the future of this object? So I really try to help my clients focus on that and how to just, live more simply, to help themselves and help the planet.
I love that. And that's summarized really well, but I want to dig into that a little bit more. So you on the day-to-day come into contact with people who have so much stuff, have consumed so much that they actually feel overwhelmed by it. It's not just that there's, not a label on a bin, it's that there's quite a lot of stuff. And, not everyone, not every culture is like this, but we live in a culture that is a really consumeristic, capitalist-based culture, for better or for worse. And sometimes things can get out of hand for a lot of people, for most people, really. And we end up having more stuff than what we need. And I got into, I guess you call it like the, minimalism bandwagon a few years ago. I've always been super into organizing and decluttering, and I love that whole thing. I got a chance to speak to a master feng shui practitioner recently, and she kind of explained the importance of decluttering on an energetic level and why people get so into it and why it feels so freeing. So that was super interesting for me to learn. But I'd love to dig into a little bit more on your thoughts of you know, some of the things and patterns you see in people with consumption and how it gets tied up, you know, emotionally, and how you are really helping people to not just purge things, but then have a new approach to purchasing or being careful about what they bring in. And for lack of a better word, just kind of like getting in touch with that minimalist or just lessist style.
I think the biggest thing I see and what people are mostly drowning in is paperwork. And I'm completely paperless. We only have 2 pieces of paper in my house. We don't get any mail. That means any unwanted mail. So we've stopped all the junk mail from coming in, everything being printed. And that just, is a big help within the house because we just don't have all that stuff cluttering up, and we're able to focus on what we need to focus on that comes in the mail, whether it's medical bills or DMV or whatnot. But it just really helps to, obviously save trees and just cut down on all that paper, and then the recycling. People think they're doing their job by recycling, but, the first R is reduce. So it's really about stopping that stuff. So I'm always looking for ways to help stop things from coming into the house. So I'll really focus on that, whether it's junk mail, plastic bags, paper bags, just trying to find ways that people can reuse what they have. Another thing we do too is just, everybody wants to go shopping and buy bins. And that's usually the last stage of the process in working with me. Because a lot of times I can repurpose what they already have or find new functions for things. So I always like the creative process of that and finding different ways to use items. Or also then if you need to buy an item, buying an item that has multiple functions, so that you don't need so many things. So just always looking for ways to cut down.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some of the challenges you have with that and getting people on board, or do you, or they're at their point, or like they could just be at the point where they're like, I'm ready to do whatever you say. But what's that like? Is it hard to get people to convert?
Just like anything, it's just creating new habits, but once they start doing it, your brain just then it's automatic, you don't even have to think about it anymore. For me, like when I go to the grocery store, I have 2 bags that I always take in with me. I bring them home and then they sit with my keys and they go back up to my car and go back in. So we don't have like a million reusable bags floating around and cluttering up, or we can't find one when we need it. So once you set up systems and routines, it's pretty easy to go with.
So, with the purging process, where does the stuff go once you're trying to get it out of a client's home?
That's a great question. And usually I love finding different resources for things because I think it helps people let go if they know it's going to somebody who really needs it, and getting, items to people. Like I work with a battered women's shelter here in Los Angeles, and I worked with a client cleaning out their storage unit, and they had all this baby gear and they were not going to have any more children. And I drove it to the women's shelter, and a mom moved in the night before with 5 kids and had nothing. And so it went from my client's storage unit to my car into this woman's hands. So it's really great. And I think clients are more likely to let go of things if they know it's going to someone who really needs it.
I can totally understand that from my own personal experience and working with people as well. How did you find those organizations? Were they ones that you just knew about, or as you're, like in this business, you just kind of developed a list of good homes that things could get rehomed to?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always on the lookout for stuff. Obviously, COVID made it a lot harder. But now there's so many great sites, online, the buy nothing groups, so you post an item and then somebody will come pick it up, which is great. So, there's no excuse. You can find people easily now who will come, pick up your things that you no longer need, that they really do need.
Absolutely. That's actually a really hot tip. I always talk about like the buy, trade, sell groups when I'm talking about buying pre-loved for interior design stuff. But say it again, it was the buy nothing group, and like kind of
Yeah.
post free stuff and people will just come get it in your area. So I guess people should look out for that on Facebook groups in their area.
Groups, and then Nextdoor is another good resource, and Craigslist, obviously the free section. So there's lots of different ways, through those various the internet to get people, to pick up your stuff for free, for sure. And even items you don't think have, the broken bicycle. I've read a story about a guy who's going around collecting broken bicycles to fix them up, then to give them to kids who needed them.
Ooh, I love that.
So it's, it's not just, one man's trash is another man's treasure is definitely true. So I always try to get people to think it's always one last stop before the dump if you can see if somebody has a use for it or needs it.
Absolutely. And now, do you take the stuff that is ready to be donated or rehomed or whatever out of your clients' homes, or do you leave that up to them?
No, I will haul away as much as I can after a session.
I would be worried about them going over and picking back through it and trying to take stuff.
They're going to do it, but it has to leave the house within 24 hours. Like, you just got to get it out. Because I've had clients before where I go to work with them and I find a bag in the closet and I said, "Oh, what's this?" And they said, "Oh, that was our donation bag from, 6 years ago." And
Yeah. Yeah, it gets stuck. Okay, I love that. So, getting creative, using all of the resources and the online tools that we have to make sure that things get a good and proper home, which is going to help incentivize the, purging process after you have decluttered. So tell us a little bit. I saw in your website that you won an award for being a green organizer. I'd love to learn a little bit about that.
yeah, I mean, it's so funny now because I just assume that everybody is a green organizer because
No way. I've met many who are not, I have to say.
I know it's like wishful thinking, but yeah, I mean, when I first started, it just was a part of, of what my beliefs are. And, and I definitely think there was a lot of people interested in that because, you're doing double duty. You're helping yourself and you're helping the planet. So, it's just a really good way. And, there's adjustments that you can make in your lifestyles. It's not that difficult that can really, help yourself and the planet.
Absolutely. But who gave you do you recall who gave you that award? We can give them a quick shout out here if you do.
The National Association of Professional Organizers, they held for a number of years the organizing awards in Los Angeles.
That's awesome. So you kind of had to explain like what you do to be green with your clients and assess it at that level.
Yeah, exactly.
Very cool. Okay, so I think that interior design and organizing has a lot of similarities. It's a lot of similarities in the type of client. It's a lot of similarities, I think, in the like process and phases of the process to a degree. And I'm often in homes where I think an organizer is needed first or maybe later, and maybe it's vice versa. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on how the two are connected and if you ever work with designers. And if you do, what do you wish you knew, or what do you wish you could tell designers that's something that like really bugs you when you're ever having to work with a designer or they've already worked with the one and you kind of have to go back in? Like, what's that overlap like, the good and the bad?
Yeah, I mean, I love working designers. They obviously, I mean, our jobs are similar in some ways, but they're so different. I could not do their job. And I think a lot of times they could not do mine. So I think we work really well together. But I definitely am a believer in form and function can happen together. So that's my only, sometimes I see designers, it looks great, it will photograph great, but how does the family function in the space? Like, you really want it to work, I think, on both ends, so that people are able to live and use the space properly, but also have it look really good.
Right. So everything from adequate storage to layout to what other kind of things might look good but not function well, that we can inform the designers who might be listening to this about how to kind of play the organizer's game a little bit better.
Yeah, I just think it's thinking about, like in kitchens, if you cook, like, okay, this should go here, the flow of how you move within a kitchen. The same thing within a bathroom, what's in arm's reach, like this space, should this where the drawer, the hair dryer should be, is this where just really thinking all of those things through. Because I think it's hard, you get caught up in aesthetics and this looks so pretty. It's like the organizers, just put everything in bins and it's got all color coded, but it's not sometimes real life. So I think that's where I come in and really get to know people and how they work in the space, because everything I do is customized for their needs.
Well, tell us a little bit about your work and what that process is like from start to finish. You gave us a little bit of a tidbit, but I'd love to hear it all the way through.
Sure. I usually start with a consultation. And I come in and we do a walkthrough of the space and we talk about what's working and what's not and their goals for the space. And then from there, we would set up time to organize together. And I work directly with the client one-on-one, because you can't really do this process without them, because I really need their input. And also I try to transfer skills to them and find out more about how they live and work in the space. So we do the work together and we schedule. They have a 3-hour minimum per session because you can't really get too much done in less time than that. So it just depends on what the client's availability is. And then there's often two in between sessions, I can break down projects for them that they could do on their own if they want to. That can help speed up the process. So it's a little bit like therapy in that way. And there's, and it also depends on how far the client wants to take it, because there's, extreme organizing where everything's labeled and, really down to, and then some other people just need to have stuff really just, tightened up, and it doesn't have to go as that far. So every client's different and every situation's different.
Absolutely. Well, I can definitely say that if you think all the other organizers do it like you do, they do not, because I've definitely, worked a tangent in a client's house before, and oftentimes it's just like a team sort of running free, categorizing and binning and storing. And just to circle back to what you started talking about at the top in terms of the eco-friendly stuff, I think just to reiterate that it is, first of all, I love your approach to work with the client. It's semi-therapeutic, hopefully, but it's instilling education and behaviors. And that, I think, is the biggest difference and biggest part that organizers can play when we're talking about getting people to have a different approach to consumerism and buying and bringing things in. For instance, in my life, and after getting into, some of this dabbling into your world a little bit, I have like a 1 in, 1 out kind of rule for a lot of things. I, schedule my declutterings as I look through different spaces in the house. And that's all well and good to get rid of stuff, but you want to be able to make sure you're not just reaccumulating with old habits. And so setting up systems, talking through, doing them one-on-one, and kind of adopting a new way of thinking about things and how we purchase things, or even why we hang on to things instead of getting them into better hands, I think is, where a lot of our overlap is in terms of my concerns with the environment and some of the work that I do. So just reiterating that, and then going back to some of the tactical things that you said, it sounds like how you approach is through that really like connected, integrated process, and discussing those behaviors and those systems and things like that. And then also the reusing, the first R, as you said. Oh no, and the first one was reduce. I guess it's the second R, reuse. And yeah. And, not jumping out and going into the car and going to the Container Store and buying all these new like super fancy gadgets. I will say I love the Container Store so much. I talk about it all the time. It's a fabulous place. It makes me very happy. But but I do think it's really key. And what you're saying is we probably all, if you think about it, have like a lot of stuff, a lot of bins, and a lot of organizing like containers and things and stuff that we could use that's already here or could be repurposed. And then I think you had one more really good like tidbit or approach to your work that I can't recall now. Would you say, do you want to round that out with anything else, like a last little tip on how to go green during this work?
Yeah, but I think going back to what you said about working with the client, because it really is, they have to go through this process, because I think that's when they really start to realize, oh my gosh, I bought all this stuff and now I'm spending all this time and money now to organize all this stuff that they don't necessarily need, and really take inventory on what you have in your house and what you actually need and where is this ultimately going to end up. So I really like getting clients to do the hard work, because I tell them, once we do this one time, you're not going to have to do this again. So that's kind of my hope and my goals for most of my clients, and that's usually how it goes.
I love that. And then I think your last recap for us designers is to really pay attention to the function of things as we're putting things together, and to maybe let go of our obsession with aesthetics just a little bit. Should the priority for function need to take precedence? And that's a great tip as well. So, is there anything else that you want us to know about what you're doing that we could share with our listeners that we
No,
haven't discussed yet?
keep working every day, and I love what I do. I love helping people, and I love helping people get things that they need, and it's a very rewarding job.
Awesome. Well, tell us one place where our listeners can find you if they need you.
You can find me online at nowirehangers.com.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining and taking the time out of your busy day to be with us today and impart a little wisdom from, I feel like, the business cousin to design. So I so appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I am sure we will be in touch.
Great. Thank you so much.